One of the traps of this world is constant comparison. You scroll through your phone and see someone buying a new car, getting married, building a house, traveling to another country, and suddenly your heart starts feeling heavy. You start wondering, what about me? Why is my life not like theirs? Why am I stuck? But what we forget in those moments is this: every soul has its own journey, its own timing, its own set of tests. What you're seeing is not the full story. You're seeing the highlights. You're seeing what they choose to show you. You don't see their sleepless nights, their tear, their struggles with their faith, or their broken moments. Allah, in His divine wisdom, did not create us all the same. Even the prophets had different paths. Some faced more trials, others were granted victories early, some had very few followers, others had many. It wasn't about success in the eyes of the world. It was about obedience, sincerity, and effort. The same applies to us. When you stop comparing, you free your heart. You begin to value what you do have. You realize that maybe your delay is a protection. Maybe your quiet life is a shield from fitna. Maybe what you think is a disadvantage is actually a blessing in disguise. People lose their peace not because of what they lack, but because of what they focus on. When you look at someone else's plate, you forget the food on yours. And the more you compare, the more you fall into jealousy, arrogance, or despair. Each one a sickness of the heart. When you focus on your own path, you start to improve it. You begin to walk with purpose, not confusion. You understand that Allah gives differently to everyone, not because He loves some more than others, but because He knows exactly what is right for each soul. So instead of saying, why not me? Say, Alhamdulillah for what I have, and work with that. Some people's ease today came after years of hardship. You might be in your storm now, but who knows? Maybe your rainbow is coming next. Just don't look left and right. Keep your eyes on your own lane. The driver who keeps looking at the other cars on the road is the one most likely to crash. Stay focused, stay content, and keep moving, even if it's slow. One of the most dangerous spiritual diseases is the tendency to spot the faults of others while ignoring our own. It's so easy to say, look at how she dresses. He doesn't pray. They're always gossiping. But when was the last time you looked into your own heart and asked, what am I doing wrong? We can memorize the mistakes of others, but we forget the sins written in our own book. This isn't humility, and it's not from wisdom. It's actually pride disguised as concern. The Prophet said that part of someone's excellence in Islam is leaving what doesn't concern them. So why are we so interested in people's weaknesses, their sins, their family problems? The truth is, talking about someone else's darkness will never bring light into your own heart. Every time we sit and expose others, we are digging a hole for ourselves on the day of judgment. Imagine being asked why you spent your time highlighting someone else's sins instead of working on your own soul. Allah knows everything about everyone. He sees what they do in public and private. Yet He still covers them, gives them time, allows them to repent. So who are we to speak as if we know the full picture? Often, the ones we criticize today may be closer to Allah tomorrow. And the ones we think are religious enough might fall due to arrogance. We should be scared of this. When you shift your focus inward, your heart softens. You start realizing, I've got enough work to do on myself. You begin to reflect more, judge less. You become more compassionate, more humble. You don't feel the need to bring others down to feel better about yourself. Instead, you raise yourself by asking Allah for guidance, for purification, for sincerity. Let's remind ourselves that our own faults are a full-time job. We don't have the luxury of managing other people's sins. Every time you see a flaw in someone, use it as a mirror. Ask yourself if you have something similar that needs fixing. And if not, then thank Allah for protecting you. The goal is not to become perfect overnight. It's to be better than yesterday. And the first step to that is focusing on your own improvement. On the day of judgment, when we stand before Allah alone, there will be no crowd to hide in, no friends to blame, no family to lean on, just you and your deeds. Allah will not ask you about the life of your neighbor, or the private sins of your friend, or the mistakes your colleague made. He will ask you about you. Your salah, your speech, your honesty, your actions. We forget this. We act like we are judges in this world, when we are actually defendants preparing for the ultimate trial. Many people waste time talking about what others are doing wrong. But that won't help you when the scales are brought forward. You won't get extra reward for exposing someone's sin. You won't gain paradise by making others look bad. In fact, it may go the opposite way. You might lose your good deeds to the very people you backbit or wronged. That's the reality of the hereafter. It is a day of justice, and every word, every judgment we made, every intention we held will be laid bare. Think about this deeply, how much of your day is spent worrying about what others are doing versus what you are doing for your akhirah. It's a hard question, but necessary. When we focus on everyone else, we delay our own growth. We become blind to our own spiritual wounds. The heart becomes polluted not just by sin, but by distraction. Islam teaches personal accountability. You can't say, but everyone was doing it, or I thought they were worse than me. That excuse won't work. The only actions you can present to Allah are your own. That's why the righteous spent their nights in worship and their days in self-reflection. They didn't have time to focus on others. They knew the weight of standing before their Lord. They knew that a single word could tilt the scale. So, the next time you feel tempted to criticize someone, remind yourself, I won't be questioned about them. The next time you find yourself tracking someone else's mistakes, remind yourself, many people walk around feeling empty, not because they don't have enough, but because they don't feel seen, valued, appreciated. They keep looking outward for validation. If people praise them, they feel happy. If people ignore them, they feel worthless. This is a dangerous way to live because your peace becomes dependent on others' opinions, and that's a path to constant disappointment. Real peace doesn't come from likes, followers, or compliments. It doesn't come from being the most admired or the most successful in people's eyes. It comes from knowing that you are trying your best to please Allah, even if nobody else notices. The heart that is attached to the Creator finds calmness, even when the world doesn't clap. But the heart that relies on creation is always nervous, always waiting to be approved, always afraid of being forgotten. This is why it's so important to focus on your inner self. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it for people to see or for Allah to accept? When you begin to do things sincerely, peace starts to flow into your life. You stop competing. You stop pretending. You stop stressing over things you cannot control. Your energy is spent on things that bring you closer to your purpose, not just your popularity. Even when people misunderstand you or don't recognize your efforts, it won't bother you as much, because your reward is not from them. Your journey is between you and Allah. And Allah never misses a moment. He sees the tears that fall in sujud, the quiet patience you show, the forgiveness you offer in silence. That is what counts. So don't let your self-worth be in someone else's pocket. Don't build your peace on unstable ground. Anchor it in your connection with Allah, your goals, your values. That's when life becomes less about proving and more about improving. You stop chasing attention and start attracting barakah. So often, we think that in order to make a difference, we have to speak, preach, correct others openly, or constantly give advice. We forget that the most powerful influence is not in words, but in actions. A sincere heart, a clean character, a person who is silently working on themselves. This person can be more impactful than 100 loud voices. You don't need to shout your message for it to reach hearts. If your actions are aligned with sincerity, they will speak on your behalf. When you focus on your own growth, something beautiful happens. You start becoming a reflection of the principles you believe in. You become patient without needing to tell others to be patient. You become generous without announcing it. You forgive silently, pray consistently, and carry yourself with dignity. And people notice. Sometimes, without even realizing it, you become a source of motivation for someone who is struggling. They look at you and think, if they can hold on to their faith, so can I. You become a silent teacher through your character. Allah tells us in the Quran that He does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. Change always starts inside. It starts with taking accountability, with recognizing that you have work to do and being honest about it. When you take that first step inwards, towards better intentions, cleaner thoughts, sincere deeds, your environment slowly begins to shift. The home becomes more peaceful. Your circle becomes more honest. The blessings begin to increase. You didn't preach. You didn't argue. You just worked on yourself. And the barakah followed. But when you become obsessed with fixing others, you miss the opportunity to fix yourself. You waste energy in judging, correcting, or trying to mold people to fit your expectations. It becomes a burden. And worse, it can push people away from the deen. Islam was never spread by forceful words. It was spread by integrity, humility, and compassion. People embraced it because they saw truth and beauty reflected in those who lived it sincerely. So when you focus on your own spiritual, emotional, and moral growth, you light a path that others may choose to follow, even if you never say a word. A kind smile, a calm reaction during provocation, a generous hand when no one is watching, these are powerful forms of dawah. They penetrate hearts more deeply than lectures. They show the strength of Islam through actions, not just claims. And this self-focus doesn't mean you become selfish or isolate yourself. It means you recognize that the best way to serve others is by becoming your best self first. You can't pour from an empty cup. If your heart is full of frustration, envy, or pride, your message will be tainted by those feelings. But when your heart is full of sincerity, gratitude, and taqwa, your presence itself becomes a source of peace for those around you. So make yourself a project. Strive to be better in private, not just in public. Focus on your salah, your truthfulness, your patience. Heal your own wounds before trying to treat others. When people see that you live what you believe, it will have more impact than any speech. And if nobody sees it, know that Allah does. He sees the effort, the tears, the late nights, the internal battles. And He rewards accordingly. When you begin to focus on yourself and not others, you start walking a path of peace, purpose, and progress. Life becomes less about chasing validation and more about pleasing the one who created you. You stop measuring your worth by worldly comparisons and start recognizing the beauty of your unique journey. You shift from judging others to evaluating your own soul. You realize that you will stand alone before Allah, accountable only for your actions, not theirs. This focus doesn't make you selfish. It makes you sincere. It reminds you that the greatest change you can offer the world is the change you make within. When your heart is clean, your intentions are pure, and your character is upright, you become a quiet inspiration. You lead not by commanding, but by being an example. You correct not with harshness, but through kindness. You attract not with words, but with light. So if you truly want to make a difference, if you want peace, clarity, start with yourself. Correct your heart, your habits, your worship. Let others see in you what words alone can never teach. Focus on yourself for the sake of your akhirah, and watch how everything else begins to fall into place.